Welcome to the Brass Hand Woodwind Shop. I'm going to get started on this Enharmonic Euphonium today. If you watched the unboxing video that I did a few days ago, you'll know that I got this instrument from Trent Hamilton in New Zealand. In my video, I also described a little bit about how the Enharmonic system works. I actually was a little bit off on that, so Trent Hamilton did a good video on that. I'm going to leave a link to that video in the description below where you can watch, and he says a little more accurately about the Enharmonic system. So if you have not watched that video yet, be sure to do that. And also from the video that I did a few days ago, somebody saw the video and they have at least parts of an Enharmonic Euphonium very similar to this one. It's a little bit different, but it's very similar. And he offered it to us to use for parts for this one. So thank you very much to Andy from the UK. That parts instrument will be very helpful because I am missing a second slide on this, and also it's missing, I think, 5 valve caps, and this instrument has at least part of the valve caps. Also, it has 3 of the 4 valves, and these valves are in very, very poor condition. Because I'm getting the other parts instrument in, I want to wait to really start digging into this repair. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm just going to describe my thought process when I have a very large project like this, what process I need to think through before I start working on it. Some of you, I'm sure, want to hear all the details of the repair. Others want to just see me get started on repairing it. So if you're one of the ones who just wants to see me dig in and get started with this repair, just wait a couple weeks and I should be working on this in full force. I made a fairly long list of things that need to be done on this instrument to get it overhauled. The first thing I'm going to do is order tools. I want to get those ordered because those will take several days to get here. I'll tell you more about that in a little while. The next thing I'm going to do is remove the stuck slides, and I'm assuming that most, if not all, of the slides are stuck. That one came out. Oh, that one came out too. I'm a little surprised about that. Okay. Oh, look at that. Another one came out. So there may be... Okay, there are at least 4 stuck slides on this. One thing I'm going to do, I'll do that right now. I'm going to put some penetrating oil on this and let it sit. Because you should always put penetrating oil on stuck valves or stuck slides. It helps get them out easier and creates less damage. And the longer it stays on there, the better. I will probably put penetrating oil on here several more times before I attempt to get those out. Let's see, did I get all of them? This one here. Okay, so there, and also the valve caps. I have 3 valve caps which are probably stuck. I did not check them out, but they're probably stuck. I'm going to put some penetrating oil on those 2. And penetrating oil does not hurt anything. If there's lacquer, it may or may not do something to the lacquer, but this has no lacquer on it, so I do not need to worry about that at all. What the penetrating oil does is it lubricates the inside, or at least it gets the process started, and that helps the valves, and that helps the slides come out easier. At least it does sometimes. Rarely does penetrating oil work by itself. Sometimes it might, but usually it does not. Usually you have to do other methods too, but it does help it come out easier either way, so it's good to put that on there and just let it sit for a while. In the next video, I'm going to pull all the stuck slides and all the stuck valve caps. The next thing I'm going to do is chem clean this. It's not overly dirty inside, but it is dirty enough. So I'm going to clean this so that it's clean inside. You do have to be a little more careful chem cleaning an old instrument like this, but I think this one can handle it just fine, so it should be no problem at all with the chem clean on this one. Next thing I'm going to do is take it apart to get at some dents. Now these dents here, once you get around the corner right here, these dents are a little bit harder to get out. I do have some tools that can get in there without taking it apart, but on this one, these dents are so bad, I'm definitely going to want to take this apart. I'm going to pull off the bell bow to get at these dents, and also these dents. What else is there? Yeah, this thing has dents like everywhere. I probably will end up needing to take off all of these branches here to get at that. And probably, yeah, there are dents over here too, so I'm probably going to need to pull off most of this tubing to get some dents out. Some dents in the slide there, some more dents in the slide. These dents are quite difficult to get out, the ones that are on the inside of the slide tubes, and those were probably put there from someone trying to pull this slide out, and it's probably very stuck, and someone tried to get it out and they probably put something there and tapped on it, and then it just dented it instead of coming loose. So I'm going to have to do something with that too. What else do we have for dents here? Yeah, pretty much every piece of tubing here has dents on it. I'm going to try to take it apart as little as possible, but even at that, I'm probably going to have almost this whole thing apart. One problem I'm going to have for dents is this tube right here. You can see that the tube goes around like that, and then around the other direction. So with the mandrels, the only place I'm going to be able to get is right from here to here, and then just a little bit right there. It's not going to be able to get around from here to here, and it does have some dents there. So what you do in a situation like that is you either just leave the dents. Sometimes you can cut the tubing, and maybe, let's see, well, right there I could get most of the dents with a mandrel, but then it's around a corner and you don't want to necessarily do that. I could cut it right here, get most of the dents out, and then I might need to cut it again somewhere else. Then what I would need to do is put the ferrules on there and put the tubing back together. I'd rather not do that though. I can go in with my dent balls and get these dents out somewhat, but it probably will not work too well because this is cylindrical tubing, and when there's cylindrical tubing, the dent balls do not do that good of a job on cylindrical tubing. They do a very good job on the tapered tubing. If it starts large and then shrinks down, then you can pull the dent ball through and expand things to where it needs to be, and that removes the dent. But when it's cylindrical tubing that goes around curves, that's hard to do. So I'm going to see what I can do on this. I probably will try the magnetic dent ball system, but that probably will not work too well. And the reason why is because the small ball bearings that will fit in here do not have that much magnetic pull on them. So I will probably try it, and it will probably work a little bit, but anyway, these dents are probably going to be difficult, but I'll do what I need to do. Definitely one thing I'd want to do if I would cut any tubing, which I am going to try to avoid, I would want to call the owner, in this case it would be Trent, and ask him, do you want me to cut the tubing or do you want me to leave the dents like they are? But in this case, I'm going to do everything I can to get the dents out as good as I can without cutting it or doing any damage to it. Another thing I noticed is dents underneath the guards right there, and then there are a lot of dents underneath this guard too. So those ones are going to be a lot harder to get. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unsolder these guards, get the dents out. I'm going to also clean up all the solder. Somebody put some really thick solder in there to fill the gap in between the guard and the dent. I'm going to remove all that solder, clean it up, and then straighten out the guard, get the dents out, and then solder everything back together. This guard is going to be difficult to do just because it's so large. There are some dents under it, so I'm going to pull that guard off to remove the dents in the guard, remove the dents in the bell bow, and then solder everything back together. But when I solder it together, nothing is going to line up like it's supposed to. It never does. Once you take it off and then try to put it back on, nothing lines up. So I'm going to, there are a few methods I can do to make that work. So I'm going to try those methods, and it should look nice when it's done. It'll just be very hard to get it to the place where it does look nice. And then, of course, there is the bell, which is very dented. You can see all the dents on the bell there. It is very normal on an instrument that is this old to be dented on the bell like that, because these instruments, a lot of times, they're set on the bell, and sometimes they put them down a little harder than they should, and it bends it up. And a lot of times then they just try to bend it back, and it does bend back a little bit, but it bends it back in a different place. And that makes compound dents in here, and it looks like probably over the years dents have been removed maybe just once. It doesn't look like it's been that many times, which actually is a good thing. Oh, and there's a crack right there. I was hoping not to see any cracks, but there is a crack. It's not that bad, but I'll have to be careful with that. A lot of these dents, they're going to be difficult to get up, but it should look nice when it's done. Now this is a situation where I wish I had a dent machine. A dent machine would do a really nice job on this part of the bell. I do not have a dent machine though, so I'm going to have to do this by hand. The next thing I'm going to do on this instrument is fix cracks. And on an instrument this age, you expect to see cracks in it, so you look for them. This one on the lead pipe right there, there's a fairly large crack. And then there's another crack right there on the lead pipe, and that one is even larger. The reason this has cracks in the first place, the way they made the tubing is they took a flat piece of metal and they rolled it around, and then they soldered it together, and then they made the tubing out of that. And you can see where the seam is right there, the darker color. That's where they brazed it together. And that place where they brazed it together is where it came apart. So it's not a surprise to see that, but I will need to address that. Now thankfully that is on the inside of where the lead pipe is, and it will not be seen, so that will be out of the way. And actually, you know what, I might, on this one, I probably will end up silver soldering this back together so that it will be almost an invisible repair, even though it's on the inside of the bell. Another place where there are a lot of cracks is the end of the tuning slide. And this is the main tuning slide, and it comes right out of the lead pipe, so a lot of moisture gets into there. Over the years, there's been some dezinkification going on here, and it has made this metal weak. And the main tuning slide tube gets a lot of use. So, and also I can tell there are a lot of dents. I can tell that this has been worked a few times. It probably got smashed in and then somebody rounded it out. Well, when that happens, this starts to happen. So that is going to require a lot of work too. Now, what I might end up doing, if this is really bad, I may have to replace it. I think it's probably going to be salvageable though. What I probably will do is take the tube, unsolder it, and turn it around so that the bad end is on the inside and then the good end goes on that side. But even if I do that, I am going to want to take care of these cracks right here. So I'm going to silver solder it together first and then turn it around and solder it back together. Next I'm going to work on the valves. And I want to work on the valves when this thing is already taken apart. So I'm going to do that before I put things back together. The reason why is I want to be able to get through both ends of the valve. And if you see right there, this tube is in the way, so I want that tube out of the way so I can get in through both ends. And on this tubing here, there's a lot of stuff underneath here, so I'm going to have to take the whole valve cluster out, and that's going to require a lot of soldering. I can't tell you how many joints it's going to be, several joints to get the valve cluster out, but I'm going to take it apart as little as I can, but I'm going to have this thing almost all taken apart. These valves are in very poor condition. The plating is all worn off of there. There's no plating left on it. There are a lot of places where there's a gap between the port and the wall of the piston. And there are other places where there are cracks in the piston. And right there, it looks like somebody did something to the bottom. Let's see, this one, there's some solder on the inside right there. It leaked, so someone tried to fill some solder in there. That did not work too well. The leak is still there. The solder did not do the job. And also it looks like someone used sandpaper on this over the years. These valves are in very poor condition. Let's see, this one It looks like someone may have used a plier on the valve, so that's bad. That hole, that there's or it's pitted there, that's going to have to get filled in with probably with solder. Normally I'd want to silver solder this, but you cannot silver solder anywhere near soft solder joints, and I'm not sure if there's soft solder on there, so I probably will end up soft soldering this. Then I will have to file it down and then hone the valve down so it's cylindrical. It's going to be a lot of work, but it will be interesting. I'm going to have fun doing it, but it will be a lot of work. So these valves are going to need a lot of work, and they're going to need some replating too. The casings, they are not in good condition either. The end of the casing it's worn down. It looks like it got dented several times, probably because the valve cap was missing. And the way you'd set it down, you just set it down like that. It probably got put down on some hard objects and dented over the years. These, they don't look much better. It looks like someone right there tried to pry a valve out or something, so I'm going to have to take care of that. This is going to take a lot of work. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it looks like someone used sandpaper on the inside of the casings on all of them. And normally that would upset me, but in this case it really does not matter, because I'm going to take the inside of the valves and hone them down so that they're cylindrical again, and then I'm going to match it to the valve itself so that they're both cylindrical and the same size and they fit in there the right way. I am probably actually going to use some sandpaper in there too. I don't know if I've ever used sandpaper on the inside of a valve, maybe a couple times in some extreme instances, but I think this may be the first time ever that I use sandpaper on the inside of a casing. But there is a correct way of doing it so that you do not damage the valve, and that's what I am going to do when I do that. I'm not sure what all is coming with the parts instrument, but none of these have finger buttons. This one has a valve stem broken off inside of the valve. This valve stem looks like it's hopelessly bent, so I probably will have to make some valve stems, and I might need to make some finger buttons, but I probably will be able to buy something. Besson still makes finger buttons, of course, and I'll probably just use the Besson finger buttons on those. I don't think they have changed much over the years, but I'm not sure. They probably will work on this. And then the valve caps, they probably have changed over the years. I'm not sure how many of the valve caps I'm getting with the parts instrument. This one is missing 4 upper valve caps and 1 lower valve cap. The 3 lower valve caps are still attached to the instrument, and they're probably very stuck, and that's probably why they are still on the instrument, because if they could come off, they probably would have been taken off over the years and then removed and lost with the other parts. So I'm not sure what all valve caps are going to come with it. I may not need to make any, or I may need to make a couple. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if any of the current Besson valve caps will fit this. If they do, then I'll just buy one. It will make the job a lot easier, but again, I don't know. I'll have to find that out. When the instrument is still in a lot of pieces, I'm going to buff the parts, and that will make it a lot easier to buff. I'm going to have to buff it again after it is completed, but if I can do it first, then it's going to make it a lot easier, and also the solder will flow a lot better on clean surfaces. So I'm going to have to buff all this up. As far as finish goes, I am not sure if we're going to silver plate it, lacquer it, or possibly leave it bare brass. Right now there's no lacquer on it, and I do not know if it came from Besson this way or if the lacquer just wore off over the years. So I'm not sure what we're going to do for the finish on this yet, but we will figure that out, and then we will do what we need to do with the finish. If this is going to be silver plated or even lacquered, I'm going to need to send it out because I do not have the equipment at my shop to do that. I mentioned that the first thing I need to do is get tools. I think about the only thing I'm going to need are ground casing mandrels and also the valve sleeves. These are all the ground casing mandrels for baritone that I own. I do not know if any of them will fit this instrument though. I do not know exactly what the diameter of the valve is, so I'm going to measure that right now. Let's see, it looks like it's around 865 or something like that. I don't think I have anything that will work. I have an 857 and an 888. Let's see, for the mandrels, the valve sleeves, that one's pretty close but too small. That one's way too large. Let's see what we have here. And yes, I know that a lot of these are rusty. I should keep these clean, but I didn't. So before I do any work on this, I'm going to clean the rust off of them. Okay, that looks like it's pretty close. This is an 888. None of my ground casing mandrels or the valve sleeves are going to work, so I'm going to have to order some. I'm probably going to order a few different sizes. So what I'm going to do is buy the smallest size that will fit in here. Then I'm going to get a couple others that are 1,000th and 2,000th of an inch larger than that. And also I'm going to get some valve sleeves that will match the mandrels that I'm buying. I think those are going to be the only tools I need to buy for this instrument. I'm going to order those tools, and I'm going to wait for the parts instrument to come in, so it will probably be about 2 or 3 weeks before I actually start working on this Enharmonic Euphonium. In the meantime, I have a couple other videos I'd like to do. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe for more band instrument repair videos.